Good morning, dear friends. Welcome to our spiritual home, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. My name is Ellen Wolfe Mulick, and I'm serving as our worship associate today. For those of you with visual impairments, I am a blonde hair, in air quotes, older and at times wiser woman who uses the pronouns she and her. I'm wearing a navy blue dress with a jacket that includes blue, purple, tan, and gold trim. We're coming to you from our beautiful sanctuary and historic, and surrounded by historic Innis paintings. It's a wonderful place to come together in peace. For the benefits of those with hearing impairments, we ask everyone to speak clearly and distinctly, and as this enhances someone who's hearing impaired's ability to understand. Great facial expression and is also helpful. We wish to honor and acknowledge that our church stands on the lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole people. We offer a warm welcome to our guests that are with us today. We would like to get to know you better and hope you'll join us afterwards for coffee and conversation. So we have these nifty red cups, and that distinguishes you as somebody who's new or feels new. And if you're seen with this, we'll make a point of reaching out to you. So, let's see. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask any of us, and we'll get you to the right answer, if there is a right answer. Our mission states we're a liberal community for all ages, promoting spiritual growth, justice, and the arts. Today, our guest is Connie Goodbread. Yes, she's a dear friend of our church. She's a mentor to many of us, and she has been with UU Services organization.
UUA.
Yes, UUA, for over 20 years. And I want to say she brings to us her wisdom, her kindness, and her ability, because we've known her over time and she's helped so many of us, she can challenge our thinking. And she's been the director now of the Hope for Us conflict engagement. She's trained with the Alban Institute many years ago and has served in each region of our country, and now is this director of Hope for Us conflict engagement. So we welcome you and thank you for being here.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Her talk today will challenge us, since she contends that UUs are not necessarily a trusting people. I can vouch for that. And while good, healthy skepticism is fine, mistrust as a way of life keeps us from being all that we can be. So what she is calling us to do is question. How does mistrust keep us from the work that amplifies love and justice in our world today? We invite each of you to listen to the threads of trust that go through the entire service, and may it bring you to a new awareness and perhaps even to new action. Our music today is provided by my friend and our music director, Bonnie Whitehurst, and my friends in the choir. And again, a warm welcome to everyone to our Sunday service.
Our first hymn is in the Teal Hymn Book, number 1037. We Begin Again in Love, 1037. And the choir will sing, and then you sing with the choir the rest of the time. We sing the same thing. This is what we sing. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. If you'd like to try it with us. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love. All right, and then we'll begin the whole thing. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time when our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time we have struck out in anger without just cause.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of admonitions of the Spirit.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
And now we begin a sacred hour that we set aside every week to celebrate the things that we find most valuable and that we share with one another. And today we will share trust and love and justice, always with an emphasis on love. And so we're going to say the covenant. Unitarian Universalism, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to walk around. So Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal, not a creedal faith. And so what that actually means is that we, as individual Unitarian Universalists, practice a free and responsible search for truth and meaning in our lives. And we believe what we must because we've discovered what is true. It is not a creedal faith, so you will not be told what to believe to be part of this congregation or Unitarian Universalism. You are welcomed into community and relationship with covenant. Covenant that binds us one to another and calls us to support each other. This congregation has written its own covenant. And so the words are on the screen and we're going to say them together. We strive to look for and encourage the best in each other as we move towards justice and peace and love for both ourselves and the world. And when we fall short, we will seek understanding, reconciliation, and a return to covenant.
We will now sing in the gray hymnal, Spirit of Life, number 123, Spirit of Life.
So once, in a land far, far away, well, or maybe not quite so far away, right? A truth streaked across the sky. It streaked over the high mountains. It streaked over the trees that tried to reach up and touch it. It streaked over the mirror lakes, and it could see itself in the reflection. And before it landed, it fell apart. Oops, I'm tearing it. It fell apart. It fell apart. And it landed on the ground. With shiny side up, right? Shiny side up. Well, Crow saw it because, crows like shiny things, and so Crow saw it, and Crow went down and picked it up and even carried it around for a while. But Crow felt like something was missing, so Crow put it down. Coyote came over, and Coyote kind of sniffed at it for a little while and even moved it around on the ground, but Coyote didn't pick it up. Raccoon came over, and Raccoon looked at it, picked it up and looked at it, because it is shiny and it's kind of pretty. But there was something missing. Raccoon put it down. Bear looked at it too, but just walked on by. Then a human being came along and saw it shining and went down and picked it up and wow, really liked the message that was on this truth, because it said, "You are loved." Oh, I love this. I'm going to put it in my pocket. I'm going to put it in my pocket. And this human being took this piece of truth and took it to their village. And everybody in the village loved it too. Everybody loved it, said, "You are loved. This is great. This is great news." And the people began to really cherish this and began to build vaults for it and temples and high towers to put it in, right? And pretty soon other people heard about the truth and they came to look at it and they wanted it too. But the people didn't want to give it to them, so they fought over it. They fought over it and it changed hands and it went from village to village and they fought over it some more and it kept changing hands and they fought over it some more. And pretty soon the tower that the truth was sitting in was really high. Really high. It was all the way up into the sky. And this little child started witnessing this and thought, this isn't right. Something's wrong here. Something's missing. So this little child set off on a journey to find out why they felt like this was just not the whole truth. So they journeyed past the lake and looked in the lake as they went by the lake and could see their reflection. And they traveled, this little child traveled through the deep woods with the trees that were trying to reach the stars. And they traveled through the mountains until they came to the old turtle. And the old turtle smiled, and the child said, "Something is wrong in my village. We have this truth and it's in a high tower, and people have been fighting over it and hurting one another over this truth for a long, long time, and nobody will stop. And I don't know what to do, and it just doesn't feel right to me." And old turtle said, "Well, you're right, it isn't the whole truth, but I don't think your people are ready to hear it yet. I don't think your people are ready to hear the whole truth. But I think you are. So here is the other half of the truth. And I'm going to give it to you. And you can put it in your pocket. But I have to warn you that people might not listen because I'm not sure they're ready to hear it yet. So they might not listen when you go back to your village. So you're going to need to be careful. Right? So the child said, okay, put the truth in their pocket and headed out, went through the high mountains, went through the deep forest with the trees that were trying to touch the stars. And when they passed the lake, they looked at the reflection and they had seen they had changed. They were no longer the child that had left the village. When they got to the village, nobody knew this child anymore. And the words that the child spoke didn't mean anything to them. So the child just kept speaking. The child had grown up and kept speaking the truth, kept speaking what they had found. And finally one day some people started listening. So the child spoke more and held out the truth that they had gotten from the old turtle. And Crow saw this happen and swooped down and picked up because it's shiny on the other side, picked it up and carried it up into the tower and brought the other half of the truth down and joined them together, and they joined together perfectly. And the people, some of the people cried, and some of the people shook their heads in disbelief, and some of the people smiled and laughed, and the child read the whole truth, which was, you are loved, and so are they. And so are they. The child, who was now an adult, smiled, and old turtle smiled too.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you.
Now is the time in our service when we take up our offerings for the work and welfare of our church and our community.
Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day. There is no hell to fear, no judgment day drawing near, just an inner voice to hear every day. Life's just a polo race. It's about heart and faith and living a life of grace every day. Trust is an open hand, making an honest stand, rooted in love every day. Live in the mystery, seeking the harmony here between you and me every day. Ours is a simple faith. Life is a short embrace. Heaven is in this place every day. Hope is the ground we till. Make each day what you will. Thankful for dreams fulfilled every day.
So enter into a meditative place with me as we listen to the words of Reverend Jim Rigby. This is entitled Go Deeper. While we each express something unique and important about the universe, it is also true that there are no free agents in the web of life. Nature does not consist of individuals so much as ecologies. When we feel lost or alone, there is always peace to be found by going deeper into what we share with others. Let the salt in your tears remind you of your mother, the ocean. Let the red blood in your veins be a reminder that you are also forged from faraway stars. Let the oxygen in your lungs be a reminder you are not an island, but are interwoven with every plant and animal in one intimate body of mutual breathing. Let the mathematics in your head remind you of your home in the silent and invisible patterns that lay behind the visible cosmos. When facing loss and despair, peace is always to be found by going deeper. Alone, each of us seems a mere vapor, but we are tasting a deeper immortality every time we love.
still and know I am.
That was lovely. Wasn't that lovely? So let me see how much time we got. Because, you know, so they say preachers have one sermon, it just takes them a really long time to give it. So I have to figure out exactly how much I can cram into this amount of time we have together, because I have a lot to say. I am Connie Goodbread. My physical description is that I am an elder of this, my chosen family. I present as white. I also identify as female, so my pronouns are she, her, hers. I have curly brown hair, and I'm wearing blue this morning. I have a blue sweater and a blue top on. And I am delighted to be here. Really delighted. So, trust. So, it got said that I've said this thing where Unitarian Universalists aren't necessarily a trusting people. And if we go individually, we would each say we were trusting, wouldn't we? We would each say, no, wait a minute, I'm kind of a trusting person. I try to go into relationships that way, right? So what would it be about being a Unitarian Universalist that might make us less trusting? I'm an educator at heart, and so one of the things that I had to do was go look at our history, right? So are there historical reasons why Unitarian Universalists might not be as trusting as, you know, other people might be, right? So let's not go all the way back to, you know, the beginning of time. So let's just go back to when the Puritans left England. You understand that they were us. We have them in our heritage, in our foundation, were the Puritans, right? And so they left England being fearful and understanding very deeply how the power of the king and the church can oppress people. Does this sound familiar? So they left England with a pretty good mistrust of power and authority. And they were given a charge by their minister, John Cotton, on the docks at Porth, Southampton in England, to go forth and build a plantation in the New World and build the city on the hill from the Bible. So the city on the hill is a really nice place for the people in the city. It's not so nice for the people who owned the hill to begin with, right? And it's not so nice for the other people that are around them. But they came to the New World and they did build a plantation. Their governor Winthrop was the governor of the plantation. And they soon discovered that what they needed was more understanding of how they would be together and how they would build their church. So they left England in 1630. In 1648, they wrote the Cambridge Platform. And it was a document that helped them understand how they would govern themselves. They were going to be Congregationalists. Congregationalists understand and organize themselves with the idea that there is no higher authority than the individual congregation. They are the congregations ordain the ministers in this faith, right? Congregations run their own business. They take care of the business of the church. They collect their own money. They elect their own board. They run themselves. Congregational polity. Second half of what was in the Cambridge Platform is that if all we were was these isolated congregations, there's a little mistrust in that, isn't it? We're all alone out here all by ourselves, right? If all we are these isolated congregations, then how will we join together to build the just and loving world, right? And so that's where covenant comes in. So we are bound one to another in covenant. And the covenant talks about how we will be faithful to one another, how we will love one another, and how we will build justice together, right? So that's the Unitarian side. So you can see how there's a little bit of mistrust in that history, right? There's like not quite trusting power and authority. Do we still struggle with that? Still struggle with that a little bit? So let's look at the Universalist side. This congregation is a Universalist heritage congregation, right? So they came to the New World also a little bit later in the early 1700s. And they had been, the first preacher was John Murray, and that's our miracle story, you know, that Thomas Potter had been dreaming about building a church on his property where a minister who would come and preach the universalist salvation, right, would come and preach in that church. But there wasn't a minister to be had. So he waited. Thomas Potter waited. He built the church on his property in New Jersey, and he waited. And John Murray was leaving England. He had been a Calvinist minister, and he had been defrocked because he was preaching the ever-loving salvation of God. All people are saved. And he had been ousted, told he could no longer preach. He was excommunicated. His wife and his child died, and he found himself in deep debt. And so he left England on a ship called Hand in Hand. And as it was sailing up the coast, they hit doldrums, and they were on a sandbar, and they couldn't get off. So the captain of the ship sent John Murray forth with some supplies, and he met Thomas Potter. And Thomas Potter said, "You're my minister. I've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for you for a long time, so you're my minister." And John Murray said, "No, I've come to find myself anew. No, this can't be true. I'm going to go back onto the ship, and if I'm still here in a week, I'll come and I'll be your minister." By golly, he was still there in a week, and he had to come and he had to be the minister in that congregation. John Murray. So there's not a lot of, John Murray leaves England defrocked. There's not a lot of trust there either, is there? No. Mm-mm. So these two denominations existed. One of them, the Unitarians, believing that God is one thing, that it's human arrogance to think that we could divide God up and get all of the divisions correct, right? So no, God is one. God is one. And the Universalists believing that God is love. In 1961, when the consolidation happened of these two Christian denominations, did we do that in trust? No. No, we didn't trust each other. No. The Unitarians had many, many more people than the Universalists did, and the Universalists had quite a bit of money. Quite a bit of money. So what had to happen was that when they got together, they wrote what I love to call prenuptial agreements. They wrote prenuptial agreements, and the Universalists got to keep some of the money, and they still control it. There are still two Universalist conventions in the United States, and they control quite a bit of money. And there's still camps, Universalist camps, that are located around the country. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in 1961, when we consolidated, it was said at that moment, we didn't do it in trust, we did it in mistrust, but we decided to do it anyway. We overcame our fears, and we did it anyway. It's good for us, right? Good for us. And at that moment in time, it was said that Unitarian Universalism would be the greatest theological discussion of all time. So we stopped talking about theology, because it scared us, right? It scared us. So we find ourselves now in covenant with one another, beginning to talk more deeply about what it is we believe, what it is that's at our center, how it is we could learn to trust one another. Wouldn't it be lovely if we started off in trust and people could prove that they were not trustworthy? Now, I'm not going to tell you that we should trust everybody. When, I like the Maya Angelou quote, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. So there are people who will prove themselves to be untrustworthy. And we should trust them to be untrustworthy, right? So I'm not saying that we're these people that should just like blindly trust, but we could go into relationships, particularly with one another, a little more trusting. Anything that diminishes us, anything that makes us smaller, will not serve us now. We are being called. Can you feel it? We are being called to be countercultural, to be who we say we are. We are the people of love and justice. We are being called to live that out. We can't do that if we mistrust one another. We have to build trust with one another. We have to build trust with the Unitarian Universalist Association. We have to build trust with congregations that are close to us. We have to build trust with other denominations and other faith communities that also want to build the just and loving world. Because that's who we are. Because that's who we are. Could we have the slide that has this one? Yeah. So, this is my covenant to the work that I do, to you, to Unitarian Universalism, to myself, and it's grounded in the 5 smooth stones of liberal religion, which is an essay written by James Luther Adams, and it's in a thick book of essays that you can find it, right? The essays are on being human religiously. And his words, I spend a lot of time simplifying really complex texts, so I'm going to simplify his text down to 5 statements, and then I'm going to simplify them even further into 5 words, right? I bet you all are going to recognize these 5 words. So James Luther Adams wrote that revelation is open and continuous. We are not the people of the sealed revelation. Revelation did not stop with the death of anybody. Revelation continues with each one of us. Each one of us has a responsibility to be aware of what is happening around us. So the fact that any of us could be touched at any moment by a divine thought gives me great hope. So the first smooth stone is hope. We come together in hope of our own free will. There is no manipulation or coercion in Unitarian Universalism. There's no threat of hell or damnation. We are all going to heaven. Right? Our Universalist ancestors tell us we are all saved. We are all saved. We are all living in the love that surrounds us, and we are accountable to that love. So the second smooth stone is love. So we come together in hope and love to build the just and loving world. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone. Not to build the city on the hill, but to bring it all into fruition for all of the people, to liberate everyone. So the third smooth stone is justice. So we come together to build the just and loving world with an understanding that we will have to do that work. There is no one that is going to come and do the work for us, and no one that who's going to save us. So all of the work of building the just and loving world will be done by our hands. Our labor, our love, our care. So that's going to take great courage. And finally, we should rejoice because we have everything we need to do the work of building the just and loving world, if we can trust one another. So the fifth smooth stone is joy. Hope, love, justice, courage, and joy. So I wrote this for myself. You need to understand that most covenants are not I mean, I can't do this. Can anybody do this? Nobody can do this, right? But I have to call myself back to it. The covenant that we said this morning to one another. It says we strive, not that we are. We're striving to do this. So we're going to work on being more trustworthy and being more trusting. Adrienne Marie Brown says, trust the people and they will become trustworthy. I think that's true. I think that's true. So to come into our relationships and trust is so important. So important. I'm going to read this to you. With hope for a bright future, I come in trust. Trust is a forward-thinking thing. With hope for a bright future, I come in trust. With love in my heart for all of creation, I come in humility. Because I could be wrong, right? Humility is really important. Seeking justice for all, marginalizing none, I come in open-mindedness, knowing that I am not finished, and none of us are finished. With courage, I come willing to be transformed. And with great joy, I come to bind myself to you, so that together we can do what I cannot do alone. With great joy, I come to bind myself to you, so that together we can do what none of us can do alone. Thank God we have partners. Thank God we're not alone. Thank God there's a hand to hold. Thank God there's an elbow to link arms with. Thank God that we have each other. I thank God every day for having found this community, for having fell in love with Unitarian Universalists and Unitarian Universalism. I thank God. Go and trust. Thank you.
Our final hymn today is number 1014 in the Teal book. It's called Standing on the Side of Love, but several years ago, people at the UUA and also the composer himself changed the words to make it more inclusive. And instead of standing on the side of love, we always sing now, answering the call of love. So,
It's a complicated song.
number 1014 in the Teal book, answering the call of love.
And so every soul
The benediction for today is a reading from our hymnal, our gray hymnal, number 704, and it is by John Murray. Go out into the highways and byways and give the people something of your newfound wisdom. You may possess a small light, but uncover it, let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and more understanding into the hearts and the minds of the people. Give them not hell, but hope and courage. Preach the kindness and the everlasting love of God. Thank you.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its ground. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another, help one another. Love is the spirit of this church. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is love. Is the spirit. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to love one another, Love is the spirit of this church. Love is the spirit. Love is the spirit. Love is the spirit of this church.
We trust that you have found meaning and hope in our service today. We distinguish this flame, but not the light of peace and love for ourselves, for one another here, for our community, and for our world. May we carry loving kindness and compassion in our hearts and out into this world. So